Welcome back to another episode of Coder Conversations. We have William back, and thank you for coming back, Raj, as well. How are y'all doing today?
Good.
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 A
So
little
what's
less squirrely this day. A little less coffee.
well, what's been new with you guys?
With me, not much. Same old, same old. I told you where I worked before. I want to leave the name out of it though, just because I am working on getting into management there. But yeah, it's a process.
Anything new with you, Raja?
Uh, I've been working on a website idea, like a podcast website idea. It's just in the idea stage, but I'm trying to like get down like the requirements and everything.
Okay. Yeah, man. But there's been a lot of interesting things happening in the world of tech. Did you guys hear about PayPal? They were going to write in their policy that if you spread misinformation, they were going to fine you $2,500.
Yeah, and they took it back too pretty quick. Like,
PayPal, that's like a payment service. How are you going to spread misinformation? I mean, what kind? Where we talk? What context?
I guess if like you're on social media spreading misinformation, they're reserving the right to be able to fine you $2,500, and you know
it's like
most people.
if you're their customer and you spread misinformation, they're gonna fine you 2,500. I'm like, that's too much. That's too much control of my life.
So
Yeah,
I thought we were done with that World War II thing. You know, that place over in that other
yeah,
country. You know, I thought we were done with all that stuff already. Because I hate to say it, that sounds a little bit like, well, yeah.
yeah. Kind of sounds like authoritarian. Like you say something they don't like, they can corporations reserve the right to fine you however whatever they want. I don't really think that's right.
It's going to be great when, if like the full realization of Web 3.0, when that comes out, that's going to be great because nobody's going to own. So we're doing this video right now. I mean, I'm sure we're going to have to like maybe do some kind of like an online waiver or something, but like you're going to own the rights to this video. It's like Melon app. They can't own it. It's like whoever the original content creator is, So, but like if that goes like in, look, I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it. That sounds, what you just said there sounds a little bit like Nazi Germany, man. So
How
Yeah,
would
I'm not into that.
let's just say you do all that on Web3. Like, how would you moderate it though?
Because it's like, do you know how, the blockchain works?
Yeah, a little bit, not too much, but
Yeah,
yeah.
it's not only in one place. It's distributed, right? So there's multiple servers all around the world. It's going to be the same sort of concept. And I got a whole lot to say about Ethereum and Web 3.0. It's just my own beliefs. I've been playing around with I started with Bitcoin and then I went to Litecoin and then I've been like with Ethereum for a long time now. And I have some invested right now, not a whole lot, but enough to take a vacation on maybe. And Web 3.0 is going to be based on the Ethereum and the NFTs and all that behind it. So people keep on telling me, "Oh, it's not worth anything." I'm like, "Okay." When I first started, Bitcoin, at one point I had 10 Bitcoins
Hmm.
and I lost the wallet. But can you
Oh
imagine
wow.
what that would be worth nowadays? I mean, it's like right now it's only worth like a couple 100,000, but like, maybe last year it's probably worth like 500,000
Yeah.
or whatever. But yeah, people were just giving them away when Bitcoin first came out, So,
How
but
did you end up losing the wallet? Like, what does that entail?
it was probably like 7 to 10 years somewhere in that time frame that it was sitting on an old computer and the hard drive probably got trash, because I was just like, it's only worth $5. Who cares, sort of thing or whatever, $5 a coin or whatever. So, I mean, and then one day my buddy, the guy I was telling you about the last interview, the guy who worked at Lockheed, he was like, did you hear? I'm like, what? He's like, Bitcoin's worth like 19,000 a share right now. I'm like, what? So I went through like all my hard drives, looked for all that stuff. And then now, assuming that I did find it, I would have to remember my password then, right? To get it. So, but yeah, so I lost out on that. But
how do you recover mentally for something like that? It's just like you never had it, so you don't really care for it.
Never had it. So
yeah,
it's kind of like somebody gives you $1 million in your hand, right? It's not your money. That's kind of how I here, hold on to this for me for like 5 minutes, right? Or whatever, and that's the same kind of mentality I've always had. I'm probably amongst the people that know me and that I know, probably in that regards, when it comes to money, I'm probably the most trustworthy person, because I mean, I don't view it as my money. It's just like, okay, well, this is cool, but now what? So what am I going to do? Am I going to go to the Barbados or Mexico and live like a fugitive for the rest of my life? No, that's not me. So,
Roger, did you ever invest in any Bitcoin?
Yes, a little bit. Like when it first came out. I mean, I'm in loss right now, but yes, I've like even last year I was thinking a lot about NFTs, like maybe investing in NFTs. Like all the NFT craze was like going up, but I don't know. I didn't feel like it was actually worth something, except some of them which actually had like actual real life users. I guess most of them are like, oh, we are going to do this, and 10 days later, once the NFT launches, it's like, oh, it's done. There are no users coming out. The founders leave the project alone. But the big ones are good, but they're costly at the same time. Like spending 10K or 20K on an NFT I don't think that's worth it for me.
Yeah, they're too volatile. Ethereum is not going to go everywhere because all that stuff is based on Ethereum. I see personally, and maybe I'm just silly for thinking this, but I see Bitcoin going away before Ethereum, just because there's like really nothing that like. I mean, there's a lot of people invested in it, but there's nothing that really depends on Bitcoin. The way, from my perspective, it's different with Ethereum. So,
what do you think about Polygon? Since they are doing like almost the same things as Ethereum, like they have NFTs, they have all of this going on too.
I don't even think about them. I'm concentrating on like one coin,
Yeah.
I mean, there actually is one. The one that browser is based on. What the heck is it called?
Brave.
Brave browser.
Yeah, the Brave browser. Whatever, I forget. I will bounce back and forth between Ethereum and that one, but that one's got actual, like you said, there's something that's physical, or well, I mean, as physical as software can be, but so.
Yeah, I like that they have like some of these coins have actual use cases compared to the meme coins like Doge or like Shiba, but even the ones with actual use cases are still not going up in value if you're actually investing it for as an like if you're investing for an investment, it's not going to go up because most of the people are looking at like they're not marketing it properly or something. I've used Stellar, like XLM. If you have ever used it, like I've used it to move some of my Bitcoin, and it is quick. Like it is less than a minute. Your funds transfer. Like if you move it on Ethereum, 30 minutes, probably a day or two. Like last year, it was probably a day or two. I mean, right now, I think it may have been reduced to 30 minutes or 1 hour, but.
Well, the exchange that I use, it's I wouldn't say it's instant, but like same day. So like if I want to take it out and put it back into my bank account, it's going to be like this as long as it's before like say before like noon, my time.
Yeah.
It's going to be in my account before say like 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, like when I come out of my bank account into my exchange, it's instant because there's a federal law where they have to hold the funds for like 7 days or whatever. But so they give you a loan on that money. But like if that money doesn't actually exist in your bank account, which it happened to me I did the opposite of what I was trying to do. I tried taking it out of my bank instead of putting it into my bank, and that messed me up for a good week or two. I couldn't do any trading. They pretty much locked my trading account. So.
And also, I don't know about these companies like putting my money in these companies though. Like, okay, Coinbase is one. There is Gemini. Yeah, there's Binance, I guess. I think those are the top three that I know of. But even I knew of Celsius that just went bankrupt and lost like billions of dollars of other people's money. I'm like, okay, let's just say like some company or some guy, we don't know who it is, he lost $40 million since Celsius went bankrupt. I'm like, so why would you put $40 million in another company's account, basically? And I don't know. I still don't trust in this cryptocurrency thing because I don't think it's built on stability, though.
Is there any kind of insurance against that? Like if the company goes bankrupt, so it's just completely gone?
Nothing. Everything is gone.
By the way,
so,
you could find out who that person was who lost that $40 million because it's still going to be on the blockchain. Nothing ever goes missing off the blockchain.
It's much worse than that, actually. So during this bankruptcy thing, what the judge said was, show me every transaction made like inside your company. So they released like some number of pages of document, like I think it's 14,000 pages of document, I guess, with every person's name and how much they transacted. Like literally your name, like if you have ever even created an account in Celsius, your name will be there. And I'm like, yo, that is so scary. Like my Bitcoin is gone, my Ethereum is gone, and now my name is outside to the whole world with all the amount that I lost to.
Yeah, I think if I still had some money left, I'd be looking to sue those people personally. Whoever the owner of that was.
Yeah, but they're bankrupt though. It's like suing the companies, which is a bankrupt company. You can't even get that much. They already lost at that point. See, that's why I don't trust them. Like I see a lot of these companies, like crypto companies that pop up, go bust like two seconds later, and I'm putting my own money into this company.
Well, I've been with Coinbase since they started. So
because it's one of the biggest ones, and it's in the U.S. It's a U.S. based company.
Well, it kind of started off. I actually got before it was like a European company, but before the American federal laws kicked in, I was able to get in accounts because it was like brand new. But then the Fed stepped in and said, no, you guys have to be regulated. You guys have to meet our standards, blah, 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 or whatever. So I was like one of the few Americans who had like a Coinbase account for a few years or a year or two, or however long it was. Because I had people asking me all the time, how'd you get a Coinbase account? And I was just like, I just opened one up, and then the next thing I know, now they have like now they split it. They have like one based in the U.S. and one based in Europe. And I'm not even sure where it started in Europe. I think it was like maybe Britain, but I'm not positive. But,
for those that don't know, what is the blockchain and how does it work?
Man, you got to go to Udacity and read on that because it's pretty complicated. But basically, you have hashes that could be cross-checked, and it's like so. Think about like a linked list, right? So like how you have your pointer here to the next part of the linked list, and that's kind of how it works. That's just like putting it really in simple terms. Man, it's crazy. I did like a little course on what was it? Wasn't Udacity? It was Codecademy,
Mm.
and I was like, because I had been messing around with, like I said, Bitcoin and all that for a long time. And I was like, well, I don't really know how this works. And so I did that little course in Python or whatever, and that was an eye opener. I didn't retain the information for very long, but I mean, I still understand like the basic concepts. But I mean, if you want to like get down like into the MD5 hashes and all that stuff and how they do the actual checking, I don't remember those details.
Mm.
You know,
Like, what are they attempting to accomplish with blockchain? Like, what is it overall?
so like I think every currency is going to have its own objective. Like you have NFTs, and like you have a game, right? A game that operates off of NFTs, where you can win NFTs, you can buy cosmetics in a game for NFTs and stuff like that. But Ethereum, Bitcoin, I'm not sure what the objectives are there. All I know is that you could put in work. A long time ago, I used to think about it kind of like the SETI at Home app, where you would like kind of like rent your computer to other people and they would do some, but no, I mean, basically you were just checking the hashes to make sure that they were valid with the last link in the blockchain. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, for like the Bitcoin and Ethereum, I couldn't tell you. But
honestly, 90% of the blockchains or currencies don't have any uses. Zero use cases. Or even if they have a use case, no one's going to use it. Like the best example of that I can give is Helium. It's called Helium Network. It's like Wi-Fi, but their own Wi-Fi. So they give you a physical product that you can keep over here, and you can mine helium. And everybody else around you can do the same thing, and like you can send data through this Helium network. People only used it as an investment, so nobody actually used the network. Everybody just uses it as a way to get money, because if you use it, you get some money like every day or something like that.
Yeah, I never figured out what happens when coin is being mined. Like, what is the graphics card doing exactly? Do y'all know?
well, it's
Uh,
you're basically wow. I mean, I'm going to do really injustice here to it, but basically, it's more powerful. I mean, I used to know all this a few years back. I mean, like right off the top of my head. But graphics card is like for like singular process. So like with a CPU in a modern computer, it's parallel processes, right? So you have like 64 cores, however many in between there on your system, and each one is running at like let's say like 3 gigahertz or whatever. You can do so much, but like you have like a really deep pipeline between your let's say between your actual instruction set on your CPU and then like the cache memory, like the L2 and L3 cache. So I mean that the pipeline for that is pretty deep. So it's going to be a little bit slower that versus like a video card that has like a bunch of shaders that can just do like simple, really quick execution of functions and they have like what's like, I mean, some of those cards nowadays they have like from the shader processors to memory like 20 or maybe 30 gigabit a second bandwidth, which is much faster than well, it's much faster because there's more memory on a video card usually. I mean, a lot more versus like the L2. The L2 is like the fastest, which I mean, I don't know if that's what they if that's like SRAM or whatever, but it's like on the die, I think. And the L3 cache, I guess some of the newer processors they have the L3 on the die, but it used to be that the L3 would be like an SRAM slot that you would plug into your motherboard, and it would still be fast, but it wouldn't be, maybe 10 times slower than like the L2 cache. But yeah, I wanted to go over some of that bit manipulation that we were talking about last time, because I went back and watched the video and I was like, oh my God, how many squirrels were there in that video? Because it was like squirrel, I was just like all over the place. Too much coffee, but when you guys are ready.
Yeah, go ahead, man. Feel free.
So like, I had obviously plenty of time to think about it. I think the best way to look at it is like, so let's just talk about like regular math, like base 10 math, right? If you have the number 10 and you shift that number to the left, what is that going to give you? It's going to give you 100, right? Because you're going to drop a 0 on this side and then you're going to shift the 1 over 1 decimal place, and vice versa. If you shift it to the right, you're gonna have a 1 instead of a 10, right? So basically what you're doing is you're multiplying and dividing by 10, right? Because it's base 10 math. Well, since binary is base 2, you don't multiply and divide by 10. You multiply and divide by 2, right? So modern processors, like let's say this one, I think it runs at like 3.2 gigahertz. It's an 8-core i7. That's like 3.2 billion instructions per second that processor can handle per core. So when you're doing bit shifting in C, it only takes one instruction, which is one clock cycle, I should say, which is like 3 billionth of a second, right, to perform a bit shift. It's going to take relatively longer to do that just by using normal multiplication, because there's like a nowadays they're pretty fast. It's not like the old days where like multiplication and division was like really CPU intensive, like very expensive, right? So like, yeah, you can still do like you could do multiplication like on a modern processor, and it won't be hit as hard as like an older processor. But like if you're trying to squeeze every single ounce, out of there, let's just say you could do like, 3 billion bit shifts a second, technically, if you're using C. And that's because C, or probably assembly language too. Maybe even C++, but when you start getting stuff like Python, JavaScript, you have the interpreter that's going to be in your way. So it's not going to take like one clock cycle, or, well, I mean, I guess technically it's one instruction. So that would be like 1/3 billionth, of a, well, that's not right either. I'm not doing it justice, but I mean, does that make more sense that I explained it that way? Basically, so if you shift to the left once in binary, you're multiplying by 2. If you shift right, you're dividing by 2. Now this only works on fixed point numbers. So like it doesn't work with floating point, because floating point has a different standard. Now there is stuff that they use called fixed point, where let's say you have like maybe 3 or 4 digits on the end of the number that is like the decimal, and then so many numbers on this side, but then you're kind of reducing the size, the size of the numbers that your integer that you can work with and whatnot. But, and then you have to do the conversion. You have to remember where your decimal goes. You have to keep track of this in your program and whatnot. I mean, is that a little bit clearer, do you think, versus the way I said the sliding window before?
Yeah, I've never used bit shifting before. It's kind of hard for me to visualize what's going on. I can picture like the numbers, moving and all of that. But what is bit shifting used for exactly?
Well, I mean, it could be used for anything where you need to do like really fast multiplication and division. And back in the day when, so what was that, 13H, graphics mode 13H? So
Yeah.
you had 10H and 13H. I think 10H was like mode X is what they called it back in the day, and then I forget what mode they called 13H, but basically, if you do the math, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it would be like you'd shift it so many decimals to the left or whatever if you wanted to say your pixel that you were manipulating was at like 1 and you wanted to shift it down to like 21, XY, you would know, you'd be able to do the math on it to where it'd be like an instant single instruction execution to where he could just do that. But typically, I mean, you probably know this, is that they used to do off-screen buffering, and then they just like flip the context. If you know what, they switch between the buffers to show on the screen and whatnot. So you could do that like really fast, like 30, 60 times, however fast the game was or whatever, and then you just switch the context to the other buffer and put it in. Now, the best way I can explain bit masking would be like you have a memory address. Let's say you're working with GPIO, which is just like an on and off peripheral, right? It's either input or output. So that's either 0 or 1, right? So you have an address for your base for your processor, your base address for the processor, and then you add that to the base address for like the GPIO register. And on the processors that I was working with, the GPIO register, is that the right word? Because you had several, GPIO bank. So you'd have the GPIO bank address plus the base address, and then based on the mask, you can figure out which pin you were concerned with, whether it was an input or an output, or whether you just wanted to switch the mode. I mean, a lot of the stuff that I did with that was just switching the mode between on and off at boot. But I did do some stuff with LEDs for kind of like a test program for the electronic engineer that I was working with, where he could make sure that his circuitry was working properly. It would just light up all these, leave them on for like a second so you could actually see it with your eye, and then turn them all off, So, I mean, does that make sense?
I think, with that, I'll probably have to spend more time like studying bit shifting and masking because, I've never used it before. You know what I mean? But yeah, it does make sense. Like it's just a quick way to do math, certain operations, like you mentioned, moving pixels around.
That is, I think so. Like bit masking is more of like ease of use when you're working with like single bits, because you could use a single bit for like a Boolean flag, right? You could use a single bit for like 0 for false or 1 for true or whatever, So versus like, I mean, I don't know what the specification is on any language actually for a Boolean, like C++ or JavaScript, but you can bet it's going to be more than 1 bit. So if you're like working on like really small hardware that has like just very minimal amounts of memory and whatnot, every little bit that you can save, can help.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think we're kind of spoiled this day and age. Like we work at a much higher level and we have so much memory. Like,
but at the same time, I was actually, since I was like thinking about all this stuff, I had to refresh my memory a little bit. But I was watching a video about a guy talking about bit shifting in C, and he started talking about other programming languages. And he was just saying bit shifting in C is a lot different from, I mean, probably C++, because C++ gets some of its background from C. They're not the same language, but they're still, I mean, you could still write some C into a C++ program. But say like Perl, or I'm not even sure if Perl has it, but like apparently you can do bit shifting in almost any language I can think of. But he was saying it's like a single instruction. Excuse me, a single instruction for C, and that kind of, that was very poignant for me because I was like, oh yeah, because you have the interpreter, like the JavaScript interpreter, the Java interpreter, even like the C# interpreter, right? Now it's what do they call it? It's a JIT language, just in time compiled, at least the first time, and they have it highly optimized. But I doubt that you're going to get just like a single instruction bit shift in C#. I mean, if they are, then Microsoft, kudos to Microsoft because they're doing their job, I mean, very well. But I mean, still, C# is still an interpreted language. What do they call it? Bytecode or whatever.
Yeah.
Is anyone using C# right now? I don't see a lot of C# applications recently.
My last company, the whole back, most of their backend was in C#, ASP.NET. I think certain companies, if they're invested in Microsoft ecosystem, they'll
See,
go
that's
with.
the thing. Like, if you have not invested in any of this Microsoft ecosystem, like ASP.NET, like C# or like all of their backends,
There's actually a lot of people using C# because you can run the .NET framework on like Ubuntu nowadays. So if they're doing that with Ubuntu, then you can bet that there's a lot of usage out there. And from what I can tell, it installs really well and it seems to work okay. It's just that like any of the information that I could find out about, I was going like trying to figure out, do I still want to use JavaScript for like the back end stuff, or do I want to use C# or Go? And I think I kind of landed on Go. Go is pretty, for a back end language, Go is a pretty solid language.
Go is very fast compared to other languages, like super. I think that's one of the fastest backend languages.
Yes, kind of like
go.
kind of like it's the new C.
Yep.
Well, no. Yes and no. I mean, let's just say like you take a really simple Hello World app, you compile it with Go and you compile it in C, and then you compare the file size. File size in Go, at least when I checked it like 5 years ago, was like 200 times bigger.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like 5 megabytes versus like 212K, right? And anytime you have a language that compiles into something, that you're going to have a massive performance difference there. Because anytime you have to cycle through that much code to do the same thing, you're going to spend more horsepower processing whatever you're doing. Now, is it going to matter? I mean, for printing hello world to the screen, no, it's not going to matter. You're not even going to notice the difference. But if you're doing thousands of transactions a second, like you're just doing the thousands of things all at one time, and you're doing it like, let's say you're doing it on like a Raspberry Pi, it's going to matter. It's going to matter. But that, but there may be a difference there, but it might not matter. It really depends on what your end goals are. I had this argument with my front end developer when I was, when I was working on that, on the BeagleBone here, on that 1 year contract that I did, and yeah, because I mean, I was super hardcore into performance back then. I was like, there's no way in the world you're going to be able to convince me that this is going to be good enough. But he proved it to me. It was good enough. So I was like, okay, well, I concede then. It'll be fine.
Well, what are they using as your company, Raja?
Oh, we use Node.js.
Oh, okay. So yeah,
I
vast
think-
performance difference.
Oh, yes. I think there's a lot of, I've seen a lot of companies, like recently, like any company, for backend, they're either using Go, Python, or Node.js. I mean, I know Node.js is pretty slow compared to Python or Go. And Java has been declining too, at least for the backend side of it. Like Java has been declining a lot. Like ASP.NET, maybe like 5 to 10 years back, a lot of people were using it. Maybe still some of the enterprise apps are still using ASP.NET, but any of the new companies that recently started have not been using ASP.NET at all, or Java for that matter. I think a lot of people use Java in banking applications or something like that.
Mhm.
There are some use cases where Node.js is actually faster than Python. It really depends on what you're doing. I read a big article on that probably like 7 years ago, and I can't imagine that it's changed much. If anything, like maybe I don't know, each have like comparatively improved, but there's still like the same performance gap between the two when it comes to like certain applications. And by application, I mean like use case. You know, I wish I could remember. Like I said, that was like 7 years ago. But I mean, Python's really good for like scientific, mathematical stuff.
Yeah.
I like data science stuff too. Like if you use a
Machine
lot of
learning.
data, yeah, like Python is the way to go. Even though I think it's still slow. Like even for data science, I think Python is still slow. I think they use another language. I forgot what it was for data science.
Yeah, I think at a certain point they don't care about performance as much as maintainability, so that's why they go with stuff like
So
that.
you have Rust. You used to have F sharp. Microsoft used to have F sharp, but
Yeah.
nowadays I think for like outside of Python, people are using Rust. I think, but
Let me check it out.
there used to be another one that was like, I can't think of the name of it right now though. I mean, but F sharp and Rust come to mind.
Scala.
Yeah, I don't know much about Scala.
R is the language. I don't know what it's written in, but like I've seen like Python and R been like at least in the data side of things.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with all of that aspect, that sector of programming, machine learning, data science.
Man, there's just like I think everybody's stack currently, like if you want to like do anything, is like React front end, back end is Python or Node.js. That's it. Like create a website, make some money, and move on with your life. That's what like every other company is doing. Like no one is trying to. Oh, go on. Sorry.
No, I like React a lot. That's all I was going to say.
Yeah. I see. Like I think I recently saw something. I don't know if it was on Stack Overflow or something, but Angular is actually has less market size right now.
Yeah, it's kind of declining, but a lot of more corporate entities use it, banks and mortgage industry.
Yeah.
I guess it's more of like a cohesive package than React. It comes with everything you need, and but React's more flexible.
They've been using, I think, Next.js. I think that's Vue.js or something. I don't know if that's the framework of Vue.js, but no.
Next.js is supposed to be like a corporate or professional version of React. I think it's Next or something.
That is for React. I think it's Next. That's the framework. For Vue, it's Next, NU.
Oh, okay.
So both are almost the same name.
Yeah.
There's too many front end frameworks. There's a new one. What is it? Svelte?
Svelte, yeah, Svelte. I don't know about Svelte. Like I have not used it at all. I've been looking at Next. I think Next is very popular right now. Like more popular than React. Like everybody's trying to use Next instead of React. And there is for static web pages, I think it's Gatsby. Like if you just want like a blog thing, they've been using Gatsby a lot. And Hugo too. I think Hugo is brand new that just came out.
Is it really that good to where you just wouldn't use like Express just to serve up static web pages? I mean, Gatsby? I mean, I really don't know. To me, it just like stock, maybe a little bit of JavaScript just to do a little bit of pushing around on the UI or something, and then like HTML and CSS. I mean, that's not good enough.
Okay. Nothing can beat that. Nothing can beat that. I'm not saying anything. Nothing can beat like plain HTML and CSS, but they just make it easier for you. That's like,
okay.
They have their own themes and templates that just like make it easier for you to start things.
That's another thing. Being a C programmer, I mean, it was like a big chore for me to go and learn that WebSockets API, that 20,000 lines of code, and I didn't learn the whole thing. I only learned what I needed to learn to get the WebSockets running right. I don't normally use other people's code. I normally, if I need something, I write it myself. Now that's going to take it's going to take me longer. Imagine being like in JavaScript and you're like, you need something like React, but it's like, oh, I can't use that because that's somebody else's code, right? So now you have to do the same. React is actually pretty good. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but I mean, compared to when I was originally messing around with like Node.js and Express, man, it makes things pretty simple and easy, and it looks good.
One thing with React is that you need to know a lot of other things for it to work properly. Like React is just plain, okay, you can write it, but you need to know Webpack or Vite or something like that to roll up all these bundle sizes. Then you have to use TypeScript, so you have to install that TypeScript config instead of actually like having integrated into it. I think Angular has everything. Like state management, you have to find a state management for yourself. You have to learn that thing, you have to learn this thing. But in another sense, it makes it easier for us, so I can choose what I want and I can reject what I want.
So like, I forget what it's called, but like, so let's say you have like a backend language doing your backend stuff, and it's just presenting like an API, and then you have like you have some kind of like a middleware between the front end and the back end to handle. But there's something there. What is it, GDM or something like that, where it has to, because you're getting data from one server and putting it onto another server before it goes to the web page, and there's some kind of like
GraphQL?
What's that?
Do you mean GraphQL?
No. It has to do with like the data is coming from a different domain than the server you're actually getting the information from. So there's some kind of I forget, ODM or something like that.
Cores,
right?
Cores, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, stuff like that. I mean, I just recently started reading about that stuff not too long ago, and I'm like, what?
Yeah,
talk about it. I'm only talking to this one server. Why do I need this stuff in there?
I had I know right now about Express how to get rid of cores if I'm using like Express backend server. But recently, like while I was working on this podcast app thing, like I had to call from another server which I have no access to, and I don't know who owns that server over there. And there was this course error happening for me. And I'm like, I can't go to the backend and remove that course. So how do I send this from my front end so that course like this doesn't happen? And it took me like 2 days or something, and did not get to a conclusion, like a proper conclusion. I used some hack. I think it's called Course Anywhere or Course Everywhere or something like that. There's a package that you can like upload your own Heroku and like pass it through. It acts as a proxy, so you send it to that sends over there, gets back. I'm like, that's a lot of work for me to do this. Like, why are you like making this extra work, making me work extra for me to get the data?
There's got to be some way that you could do that without cores. Like, you get this server to get this data from that server, like your web scraping or something, and you write it to a file or something, then you just spit it back up out of your server back to your front end. There's got to be some way. Maybe that's what Cores does. I don't know.
Well, Cores is more like a browser security thing. Like
right,
you're limited the domains that can hit the server. Yeah, you don't want like just random information being sent to places it shouldn't go. That's like a huge security risk.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it from that end, but there's got to be some way you can handle that.
Honestly, I think the best way to get rid of cores is like upload the front end and back end on the same service, like let's just say you use GCP or AWS, upload both of them on the same, platform. That just makes it easier so they can talk to each other. Like inside I think there'll probably some UI, like you can just click and like connect both of them together from inside. So you don't have to deal with all this.
But that kind of like ruins like the whole concept of microservices, right? Because like you could technically, for like a microservice, it could just be like what do they call that on AWS, where it's just you don't technically have a server, it's just
Edge. Edge, like I think it talk Edge. I think it's called Edge. I forgot the whole thing, but
Just
either
like,
it's Lambda functions. Lambda functions
yeah,
is just like you upload a function, but I think there's a Edge servers are where you can upload the whole app itself.
but there's got to be some way to, like, say your back end is on this server right here, but it's got to reach out to this other server for like some data that is given to the front end. There's got to be some way to where this server can talk to that server without the front end knowing about it. You know, then that way, you know, and then I don't know, maybe that's going to put too much stress on like the front end server or whatever.
No, that exists, like that does not concern front end at all. That like you backend can talk to their own backend services, but it depends upon if the other service that you're talking to from your backend allows it to happen or not. If I have a GCP like a program and you have one and you're trying to talk to mine and I don't allow it, it's not gonna happen. I have to like open up to your IP address or to your service so that you can talk to me. And you can restrict people like that too. If you don't want everybody doing it and on your own application talking, then you can like restrict that service or that IP address.
So what would you guys think about WebAssembly? Like, there's frameworks like Blazor where you could do C# in the front end. It's kind of like a Angular type of framework.
I've heard of it, WASM, like I think they call it. Like,
Is C#
people are-
really the correct tool for a front end though? You see what I'm saying here? I mean, you got the proper tool for every different thing you need to do. Why would you want to make the wrong tool be the right tool? I mean, when you already have the right tool.
I think, you know, certain companies, they're just like so invested in a certain type of developer, they don't want to bring in other guys.
Microsoft. Yeah.
I think WASM makes it faster though. It makes the whole application faster depending upon the language that you have written in. Like if you wrote your like software in C, it's a smaller bundle size and faster processing. And what WASM does is I think it just converts this to so that web browsers can use it. I guess that's what it does.
I think it's good for like, you know, like certain applications that get ported over to the web, like, you know, like Unity, like games being ported to the browser. You don't necessarily want to rewrite everything in JavaScript. So port that, I can understand that, but I don't think it's necessarily that great for typical web development. You already have the ecosystem there.
I've heard it's the future of web development, like from a lot of people, like on LinkedIn at least, like they've been saying that, yeah, this is the future because you can use other languages and just use WebAssembly to convert it, you know, and play it on the web browser. But I don't know. I don't think, not in the next few years. It's going to take some time for everybody to upgrade themselves.
It kind of sounds like there used to be something, I can't think of what it is, where you used to be able to access programs through the browser. It had something to do with PHP, I think, but you know, PHP is like terribly slow. I can't think of it. It was like, from memory, it was like largely like a Linux technology. Microsoft was doing something else. So, but like if you just needed like a single bit of data, like a single number or something like that, then you would just call like your back end program through the web page, but it was supposed to be done in like a secure way through this little interface. And I can't think of what it is that I researched it once and I was like, well, why would I use that when I have WebSockets? You know, so I just used WebSockets. So, but now, I mean, is anybody even using WebSockets anymore? Is everybody using like gRPC and all that nowadays?
I think they're still using WebSockets. Yes.
Yeah, for more like real time, you know, communication.
A lot of chat applications. Yes, they've been using WebSockets.
WebSockets.
One thing, I think it's called TRPC. I think you just talked about it. It's called TRPC, which basically, I don't know. I heard this one of these guys talking about TRPC, where you can send data. Like it basically reduces your Node.js packages. Like this guy deleted half of his Node.js and converted it into TRPC. It's like some kind of socket system. I don't know exactly, but They say it's been like growing a lot too.
Well, gRPC is supposed to be, I don't know, just it's developed by Google. That's what the G stands for.
No, it's T.
No, but there's also
Oh,
GR.
DRCP, yeah. Oh, let me check that one out. Maybe it's the same as this.
Remote procedure call.
Yeah. Which, yeah, a remote procedural call isn't really the. I mean, the original RPC isn't the same thing, but it's kind of the same thing, but it's not. So
Mhm.
I guess kind of. No, it's not even the same thing. I guess it's more like WebSockets is the way. I don't know a whole lot about gRPC, but from what little that I have read and watched video wise on it, it's not even remotely the same as RPC. Because I mean, remote procedural call on Windows is basically you have a socket that you can communicate to, where I think it's going to say, okay, I need this kind of like an application or something. So then it opens up another socket, but that's like local, as far like maybe on a local network at the most. That wouldn't be from like the web in to or from outside the web, to the web sort of thing.
What do you guys think about the metaverse? Is that something y'all plan on jacking into, or?
That's Web 3.0.
Mm.
Zero chance that I'll ever go into the metaverse. Because I mean, there is no way. Like I saw Facebook doing it, and so I heard like there was some online news article that I read about Facebook and metaverse. What Zuckerberg has been doing is that he has been like doing more on the like he has been putting pressure on the metaverse department and like putting more money into it, but it has not been outputting any money back.
Yeah.
It's not generating any revenue, and it's like.
But there is no metaverse yet because Web 3.0 isn't out yet. So I mean, how can there be a metaverse if the back end of the metaverse isn't in place? But McDonald's invested like $40 million into their development team for the metaverse, from what I remember reading like a couple months ago.
Yeah, I think people just, companies want to sell digital assets. Like, you sell something, you create something once digitally, and you can replicate it and sell as many as you want. So,
Well, the way that I kind of thought about it in the context of McDonald's is they have an online presence. You know how kids are kind of like sucked into like their phones and stuff nowadays, right?
Yeah.
So they go into the McDonald's, they're playing with their friends online, they're like pretend eating, in the game or whatever. Now they're hungry. What are they going to want?
Right.
They're mommy, daddy, let's go to McDonald's, or something, So
I probably have where you could just order it in the metaverse and they deliver it to your house, like the ultimate lazy.
Something else that maybe hits closer to home is somebody paid $800,000 for the metaverse home next to Snoop Dogg's house.
Yeah, exactly. Like they paid all that money for nothing, like digital.
Hey, Snoop Dogg. I mean, he's got some good music. I mean, depending on who you ask. I mean, I think he's got some good music out there, but do you really need to pay $800,000 to get a digital home next to his digital home?
You're right. It's really just too much money.
A lot of people have been investing in this metaverse because of all these celebrities, but most of the celebrities get it for free. Like, why would Snoop Dogg or like any celebrity invest like even $1 into this without the other guy saying, "Oh, I'm going to give you like $3 million. This is yours. Go like advertise it a little bit."
He just made somebody $800,000. He shouldn't have to invest anything. No, to answer that question myself, no. But I would be interested in learning about it because I think the technology is kind of cool. And why not make money off of something that other people enjoy? I mean, think about like 7 years ago. Did you ever hear of a game called Roblox?
Yeah. Yes.
Billions.
But 7 years ago, there was no Roblox, right? Never even heard of it. And then like suddenly Roblox is out now. Everybody knows it because everybody's kids is like, "Mommy, can I install Roblox on my
And I hate
tablet or whatever?"
Roblox. Like, because with Roblox, kids play it, but every time there's always like a screen that pops up, like, do you want to buy this? Do you want to buy Robux? And unless you're careful about the settings, they can just run up your credit card.
I always used to. So a close friend of mine, her daughter, I used to hang out with them for when I was living on Maui. She would always beg me for like Roblox, so I would just buy her a gift card and give her the gift card. That way she stays away from my credit card, sort of thing. And
That's a
and
good
then
idea.
and then it's like it's also like not just something that, oh, you just got paid today, give me some Roblox, sort of thing. And it's like, well, Uncle Bill, he doesn't have the money. He can't afford 30 Roblox right now. I gotta pay my electric bill. So
Yeah. Someone commented saying that McDonald's was developing some AR ML for their ordering. I hope not.
somewhat.
So, like
AI.
AI, I'm like, imagine like I think of McDonald's and it just like I'm scrolling and it just like orders from itself. Like, oh, okay, he's thinking of it. Let me just order it right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I think people are getting a little bit carried away with all this new technology. There's use cases for like AI and stuff, but for ordering stuff from McDonald's, I mean, you could do that in HTML and CSS. Why would you need AI for that sort of thing, right?
Maybe they just want to like build models of like train their models according to what you like so that they can show it at the top.
Yeah, show like the food that you would most likely buy, and
Oh,
And like give you offers like every this month, or like they can track everything literally. Data is king for every company at
but
this point.
that's why Web 3.0 is going to be awesome, because that whole data collecting thing that data is now going to belong to you. My data is going to belong to me. It's. So Kevin, his data is going to belong to him. Everybody's individual data, they're not going to be able to sell data anymore. The only way they're going to be able to do that is, like you said, like with the McDonald's app. They can use that internal to their app, but technically, if they're using the internet somehow with Web 3.0, well, that data technically doesn't belong to them. The data
Oh,
still belongs to the individual.
I have a question for you with this data thing. Okay. So let's just say I made a post, right, on Web3. Like imagine like there is a Web3 Twitter right now where I could post and it goes onto the blockchain and everything is saved over there. I made a post which I did not want to post at all. Let's just say I say that, oh, I have $10 million. Now I know everybody's going to come after me, but I posted it already. Now I have to delete that thing. How would I do that?
On the blockchain,
Yes.
I don't know. You understand the acronym SOL?
No, what is it?
It just means S out of luck.
Oh, okay. I got it. Yeah. See, that's the thing that I don't want it to happen. Like, that's one of the biggest cons that I see. Like, any Web3 app or something, everything is recorded and saved forever. Like, I wouldn't want anything to be saved forever. Even my own brain wouldn't want my memories to stay forever.
Yeah, so it's gonna, it's kind of like a double-edged sword, I guess. Maybe even a triple-edged sword. You gotta have to look at it from more than one thing. Like, let's say you put up a resume and then you decided, like 2 or 3 years down the road, well, you don't want anybody else to see that resume. What are you gonna do?
So,
yeah,
so with the resume
Same
thing,
thing.
I've heard of somebody actually doing this. Like they put their resume online and like, send the blockchain link or something to the person. But it's like, isn't it going to clog up the system with all the outdated data? And it's going to make it slower and slower. The more data it goes in, the more slower the system network gets.
I'm not sure how they're gonna handle that. I would think it would work something like how our cognitive, how our as people, how our memory works. You have short-term and long-term memory. long term is going to get stored way in the back. Now it's going to be really slow for somebody trying to get that long term memory, but everybody who's currently operating like in the present within the last X amount of months or whatever, it's going to be relatively quick, right? But I would imagine it would be something like that. But
doesn't it seem like the internet is almost like maybe like a giant brain that of some eventual AI? We're all like little nodes on that brain.
Well, our brains are basically a really complicated computer. So I mean, I don't know if like computers are exactly modeled like after the brain or whatever, but I mean the same basic concept is still the same.
I think that's how Google sees us. Like the Google like AI or ML system, that's how they see us. They see us like a small node somewhere, and connect us to every other thing that we Google.
Well, I got something to say about that too. I got something to say about everything probably, but from what I've seen, at least when it comes to like generating code, it's just a fancy Google search engine. There is no thought process in there. It can't write code from scratch. It goes out and hits up like Stack Overflow and other sites, and then maybe makes a little bit of AI judgment on like, hey, will this thing actually work, sort of thing, based on the text around the stuff or whatever. But it doesn't actually write any code. It goes because like if you guys watch Dave's Garage on YouTube? He's a retired Microsoft engineer. He worked on Windows XP and all that stuff. He was talking about all this stuff, and then he did this thing with the Google AI stuff. So I said, "Oh, okay." He's got like a given program, what the heck is it? I think he like tries to see how many times he can calculate. What is that? Not fractals. Prime numbers up to like 1,000. How many times a second he can do that? So he's got his own little thing that he does, but he does this with every programming language that he uses. So he did that with the AI, and he did it with different languages. He said, "Yeah, it's doing it pretty good." So I went up there and I started like doing my own. No, I don't do prime numbers, but I was just like, okay, so do the XYZ, write me a game in JavaScript or something. And I kept on refreshing it, and I noticed that the same data was coming back. So I actually went out and did my own Google search, and this stuff was coming from stuff like not Reddit, but like Stack Overflow and stuff. I'm seeing the same exact code, and I was like,
imagine the more code it has, the more it develops itself.
Yeah, it won't work for anything. Like if you have to have something like, I couldn't give you exact numbers, and I think there's like you can do a little bit of adjustment like on the web page app, but say like over 1,000 or maybe 5,000 lines of code, you're gonna have to break it down into smaller chunks. Otherwise, it won't be able to like. Say you're going to need to write a back end function to get the date and time, and now you need to get like that to your front end. You're going to have to like break it down into little micro chunks to get that to actually work, and then and word it in a way to where it's actually going to be able to all link together, right, without having to write any code. So
yeah, I mean not right now, but what it's achieving right now is good enough. Like if I say show me an addition, add two numbers, it's gonna like give me a function with like two numbers and the return and everything.
oh
That's
yeah,
good enough right now, but like maybe it will increase.
yeah. Don't get me wrong, it's good. It's like it would be like an advanced Google search. So instead of having to wade through all these separate web pages yourself, it automatically comes back with the best option that it can find, and then you just take that code, you play with it, you make it into your own, and then. I've probably spent weeks working on stuff that I wasn't familiar with before, searching Google and playing around with different things until I finally found something that I could use for a given situation, and that would like minimize that down pretty good, I think. but it's not writing. It's not the AI is not writing the code. It's
No,
just
definitely.
Google.
But it is slowly kind of improving though. From what we have seen, like I don't think 5 years back, like any AI could write and like add to numbers. But right now, even though it's getting from Stack Overflow or something, it's going to slowly improve on what it can search or what it can store, what it can learn from this Stack Overflow data.
Yeah. I mean, I think I like Stack Overflow. If I mean, I'm almost always put in Stack Overflow and then whatever I need after or maybe Stack Overflow at the end, depending on whatever it is. But
Sometimes what I feel like is that I search for an exact thing and the Stack Overflow pops up. I click on it, I look at the answer, but it's too outdated. It won't work on my app because they haven't updated in like 5 years, and I'm like, oh, this was my last opportunity to get rid of this bugs here in my app.
well, that's when you go to Stack Overflow and you search the thing within Stack Overflow, and they'll give you like a dated, like if there's multiple answers for that question, there you'll see the dates on them. So
I started searching GitHub because a lot of people on GitHub, like in their issues or something, GitHub issues side. So a lot of people have the same problems as you do.
And if you need if you need to learn like a new concept for you or something, just searching that like you said on GitHub, you get like a full blown example. You can just like start wading through their code.
Yeah.
But
just like even like let's just say you want to start an application, right, which has like React, Node.js, this, you can search for that exact thing, and they already have the boilerplate ready for you. You just clone it, start it up, like start writing. Everything is already set up for you.
Yeah, what's the name of that package in Node.js? Is it called Create React or whatever?
Yeah, Create React app. Yes.
Yeah, but I've watched a couple of Udemy videos, and I kind of learned really quick that the people who rely on Create React aren't very good coders. It's the ones that use Create React but then know what to delete out of the file system that are the guys that really know what they're talking about. I'm not an expert myself, but I mean, before I like start diving head first into like writing my own code, I like to know at least half of what's going on, So, I mean, I used to be pretty good with JavaScript. I like JavaScript a lot still, actually, but there's also a lot of pitfalls in JavaScript. I mean, just the old equals versus equal, there, or when is null not a number, or stuff like just the crazy stuff that'll throw the oddest bugs into your app.
Yeah, JavaScript, it has like if you do the two equal signs, it has the automatic type conversion. So it'll automatically convert like 0 to a Boolean if necessary. That's why I always recommend doing the 3 equals, so you have it checks for type as well as equality.
I've been trying to use TypeScript even in my personal projects. Like whenever I start an app, it's always with TypeScript. So it's I'm trying to develop my skills so that there'll be less bugs in the future. Because I have seen like even right now, like if I write a JS file and I write like probably like let's just say 100 or 200 lines of code, there are type errors somewhere happening always.
Well, I've been watching and reading that TypeScript actually isn't necessarily, in certain cases, isn't necessarily all that good either, because it's basically just like somebody took JavaScript and then bolted something on top of JavaScript, right? To format the code, or like, what do they call that? Transpile the code properly or whatever, I mean, to the best of the knowledge. And then who was that? Simpson?
Yeah, Kyle Simpson. He was in the big.
Yeah, I mean, wasn't he talking about something about TypeScript too?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't like TypeScript, and also like they've been trying to introduce types in JavaScript. So it's like then TypeScript won't have much of a use if they try to, put that.
I think that's kind of the attraction to JavaScript. A typeless language. I mean, if you know what to avoid, and I'm not saying I do. I mean, I used to know a good bit more about it than I do now. But if you know what to avoid using in JavaScript, it's really not that bad of a language. Um, but there's like a book called JavaScript, the good parts, and the JavaScript, the bad parts. I'm not sure if they're written by the same author, but JavaScript, the bad parts, was the guy really knew what he was talking about. And that's actually when I started, not when I started learning JavaScript, but when I really started learning JavaScript, that my eyes were opened, because because the syntax is so similar to like C, curly braces and all that stuff right there. I just kind of treated it like C for a long time. And I'm like, man, this language is a piece of junk. And then I really started learning about the language, and how to use it properly. And then I read that book, The Bad Parts. And yeah, it was a huge eye opener. And then, Node.js came out, and I was like, dove all the way in,
Honestly, like you can use JavaScript to build anything. Like any application you think of, like you can use JavaScript. I don't know about embedded applications. That's like C and I don't know C++ can use it or not. But 90% of your use cases can be done with JavaScript, even though they are very slow.
I kind of see it as kind of like you could use it. So like as a C programmer, I would use it as often use it for like a prototyping language. So if I needed to slap something together really quick, just to demonstrate something, I would do it in JavaScript, and then I'd convert, not convert, but then I would translate that into C. And another good use that I've always found for JavaScript was like using it as a graphical user interface to my C applications, because it's much easier to get visual representation in a web browser through JavaScript than it is to write a user interface in C. I mean, even C++, which has like all these frameworks, it's a huge pain in the butt to get all that stuff working, So, yeah, I mean, I kind of like, there's a tool for every use, and maybe that tool for a given use is different for different people. But I think that's the beauty of like programming. There are right and wrong ways to do things, but those are, for somebody who's been around for like 3 to 5 years, those are going to be like really obvious what to avoid doing, what not to do. But like, there's just so much. I have a friend who he worked for Amazon, or friend in real life who worked for Amazon or Google, one of the two, I can't remember, but he's a Perl programmer. He's got 25 years of Perl programming under his in Linux. The guy can pretty much command whatever he wants to make for the company that he works for. I detest Perl, but hey, he's like, the last I heard, probably like 10 years ago, he was making $150K a year as a Perl programmer. So now he's got like 25 years. He could probably get like $250,000 easy, for like a gig. So I buy $250,000 a year, $225,000 a year. So
Yeah.
but
I think the multiple use cases of Java, I like the multiple use cases of JavaScript though, and like moving from one thing to another thing. I learned React, so I'm try to build mostly everything in React itself. Like I don't try to touch like plain JavaScript. If like that's only if I actually like need to go there and do it. So I was trying to find a stopwatch app for Windows. All I need is 3 functions. Like I think stop, like there is start, pause, and stop. That's it. Like and anything else is useless for me. And it needs to be like a small application so that I can push it, and it needs to be pinned on top of my screen. Could not find a single application on Windows or online. Like I went like, so I was like, okay, I can write my own. It's not that big. I can find the code online. I can find some random React project online, and I can just slap it into Electron JS. That's it. That's all I did. I did it. It built a exe file for Windows, and I started using it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yo, this seems so easy. Like anybody can build it. Like if you know how to copy code, you can build a Windows application just by copying it.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, there's several games written in JavaScript, and some of them are selling on Steam, have been selling on Steam for a while now, and some of them are actually really popular. Uh, I can't think of the name, but one of them is kind of like a computer, like the movie Hackers, but you're going around, you're hacking other people's computers, and you damage them by hacking their computers, sort of thing. But it's like the graphics is like Mario Brothers, it's like pixelated and all that stuff, but it's a really popular game amongst some people, and it was written in JavaScript. And I actually watched a video, a couple of videos actually on YouTube. The guy has his own channel, and I found it, as just a programmer, it doesn't matter. Like if I prefer like high performance C programming and stuff, like I still find that sort of thing interesting, And then like last week, I found this Asian woman. I would have to assume that she's living in the UK, or maybe no, she's living in Australia, because she was talking about going from Auckland to somewhere or something, but she uses Go, and she was like doing game programming in Go and stuff. But the way I found her is I was doing some research on bit shifting in Go and stuff like that. I was, like I said, I was thinking about it, and she had like a really good explanation on pointers in Go, because you start, you can really tell somebody's experience level with programming when they, like, what the ampersand symbol is for, right? That's the address of symbol in some programming languages. It means like the address of. Well, when you have somebody who's inexperienced, who sees that ampersand in front of like a variable, they start calling that a pointer. And I'm like, no, I think that's actually the address of the pointer you're talking about there, I mean, just these little niggles that I think of, in my brain, nitpicks. So, yeah, I don't know.
The last time that I heard ampersand, like I think the last time that I programmed C was probably in 2014. Like in my first year of my engineering, was my bachelor's, was the first time that I did, and the last time that I ever touched C program. I think we did a little bit of embedded C, just to make, like, we used to have that microprocessors and microcontrollers that we had to control. So other than that, never got into C, because I honestly, like, I did not understand pointers. That was one of my biggest things. Like in the 6 months that I did that class, I did not understand pointers, and it's a big thing in C to like actually understand how pointers and how pointing to different addresses work.
That's actually one thing I think Go does right, because of the way they place the asterisk. It tells you whether it's like, I don't know. I can't really explain it well, but it's not placed the same way it is in C, because like you would have like a double asterisk in like C or C++. I mean, what the heck is that? A double what a void pointer? I mean, you know what I'm talking about when you see like a double asterisk in front of like a pointer. It's like, okay, what is that? A pointer to a pointer? What is that? Sort of thing. But Go, they do all that sort of thing right. They either put, so you would have like the type, and then like maybe a space, and then the asterisk, and then you would have your variable type, instead of having the asterisk right on the end of your variable name, right? So, I mean, maybe I've got it wrong or the wrong way around or whatever. But I remember when watching this girl's videos, I was like, wow, that's actually really cool, you know. But
Hey guys, it's about an hour and 30. I'm in the stream, but we can stay in here and keep chatting.